never forget what we fought for 100 years with blood, sweat, broken bones, death.
This is Steve Zeltzer with WorkWeek, and the issue of labor and politics and fascism is growing ever more critical today in the United States. And workers and trade unions are more and more concerned about the danger of fascism. And there's going to be a meeting in Los Angeles in September called by the Roofers Union about the issue of labor and fascism and a workers' party. And joining us is Cliff Smith. He's the business manager of Roofers Local 36 in Los Angeles, and he's the initiator of the conference. Welcome to our show, Cliff.
Good morning, Steve.
So, Cliff, why don't you talk about this meeting that you're going to be having? Why are you having it, and what's going to happen at it, and what do you hope to come out of it?
Well, the impending elections are critical for the lives and futures of working class and oppressed people. And I don't see that there's any real formation that's providing an analysis that offers any type of direction or meaning to regular workers. There's two candidates, two political parties, that one of them will emerge as the winner of the election. There's no third alternative that is realistically viable, and so one of those options is going to set the direction for at least the next 4 years in this country and the circumstances within which we have to organize and struggle. And at the same time, we have to build our own independent political organization that represents our own interests. We can't be subordinate to the lesser evil simply because we recognize that it is a lesser evil. We have to maneuver in the circumstances that we find ourselves in, but at the same time, we have to develop and build our own political analysis and power.
And there has been a rise of fascism, not only in the United States, but internationally, in Argentina with Milei, in Italy with Meloni. How do you see the development and rise of fascism? What is that all about, and why is it happening?
Well, it's certainly a product of the crisis of capitalism. The economic forces are creating conditions that further exploit and oppress working class people as it spills internationally through imperialism. It further oppresses and destroys entire nations of people. And when conditions get bad for working people, they're looking for who to blame. And the appeal of fascism, so to speak, is that it provides people with an enemy or a target, which normally will be somebody that's worse off than them. Immigrants is a popular target of fascism. Anybody from an oppressed nation in the United States, Black people, for instance, women, anybody that you could step on to make yourself feel like you're a little bit better off. And so it's the job of representatives of the working class to expose that this is a fraud, that this does not represent our interests, that we have much more in common as workers with any working class person, any oppressed person, than we do with the ruling class, with the capitalists, with the owners of these big corporations, conglomerates, banks, etc.
And the Democrats and Republicans say they want to deal with the immigration problem. They had agreement on a bill to control immigration, yet it seems neither of those parties are talking about the role of the United States in Central America and Latin America in economic blockades and actually supporting coups by right-wing military dictators to help the multinationals and drive people out. I mean, you think that's a bit of hypocrisy?
Well, right. I mean, more than a bit, and it's obvious, in any honest person, you don't have to be a political scientist to see the efforts made to destabilize these countries. And then, of course, as their economies are laid waste, they're leaving, trying to find more stable, circumstances, and they come to the United States, and then they're demonized as the source of the problems in the United States, which is a complete farce. So, of course, the hypocrisy is blatant.
And the issue of this Project 2025, how do you look at that, and how do you see that in relationship to working people and unions?
Well, these think tanks, the Heritage Foundation and the other assortment of them, they're not new, and they've always been promoting, these schemes, whether you call them trickle down or whether you call them family values, or, in some formation. I think the difference now is the capacity that they have to actually implement and enforce and compel these very radical fascist, white supremacist, anti-working class policies, and that they put them all together into one manual. And where Trump is being upfront that he intends to be a dictator on the first day, and that potentially there will no longer be presidential elections after this one. People won't have to worry about voting anymore. He's being pretty transparent, and I think that we need to take him and the rest of these people at their word and deal with it on those terms. And again, I don't see any formations, not the Democratic Party, not the labor movement, and not really any other type of organization that's addressing that, in terms of that this election is 3 months away, and we're on a very short calendar right now to prepare ourselves to prevent it, to follow up after the election, to avoid any type of January 6, 2021 situation, or in the event that Trump wins the election, where are we in 90 days or 100 days?
And the Republicans, Trump has said that they are not going to follow the results of the election unless they win it. They don't accept the election. It sounds like they're saying there's going to be another coup and insurrection unless they win the election. Is that what you read from that?
Well, I mean, they've already played their hand. They played it in the last election, and that's all we can see these people as. To be the candidate of the Republican Party, we should consider the entire Republican Party as a criminal and terrorist organization on that basis. There's been almost zero accountability for any of this. If any type of democratically based organization, labor union, or community political activist group had ever attempted to try anything like that, we would be in prison for the rest of our lives, for certain.
And despite the fact of the rise of fascism, the open threats to have another coup and insurrection, it seems like the unions, the AFL-CIO, not only are they not organizing any kind of movement preparing for that, but in the case of the Vermont AFL-CIO, which called for a general strike and a mobilization against an attempted coup and insurrection, they're trying to shut them down, prevent their leadership from operating. And Richard Trumka, the past president of the AFL-CIO, tried to put them in trusteeship. It seems like the AFL-CIO leadership and most of the unions really don't want to prepare people for what's coming. Do you see that as a great danger, that the leadership of the unions are basically taking this as business as usual, not an emergency situation for labor?
I would even say it's worse than that, because even under business as usual, conventionally speaking, they're not providing leadership. So in this circumstance of imminent threat, it's just an abject betrayal of their sworn obligations as leaders of our movement, of our organization. And whether it's Liz Schuler or whoever else at any level, I swore an oath when my members elected me to represent their best interests. I mean, if you want to say against enemies, foreign and domestic, or whatever you want to say, the potential of a openly fascist and anti-working class administration taking power of this country in a few months, it is an existential threat to the labor movement as an official organization. You know, I'm not speaking about any type of like working class organic, you know, move. I'm speaking as the AFL-CIO and its affiliates. Trump and the MAGA Republican Party, the Project 2025, is a existential threat to our existence. Trump has said that the president of the United Auto Workers, Sean Fain, needs to be removed from his position. I mean, he's telling us exactly what his intentions are, and we need to respond in kind. That leadership is not being provided. There's no analysis being put forward. There's almost no organization or mobilization being provided.
And with the possibility that there will be another insurrection and coup, what should the unions going to be doing to defend themselves? What should workers do? And what do you have envisioned for your conference on discussing how unions should organize and working people should organize, and the oppressed people who are going to come under attack?
Well, this is the question, and you know, I can't say that I have all the answers to it, and that's why we're trying to open the discussion up in this conference on September 7th. You know, everybody that can make it to Los Angeles is welcome. I'm hoping that we can develop some type of remote or Zoom way to interact with it. But certainly over, you know, the last generation, there have been many popular movements, whether against police brutality or to defend women's rights or to support immigrant rights. And all of the strengths, all of the organizational capacities of all of these movements need to be brought together into one united front to defeat fascism and to defend democracy. And whatever disagreements that we have, you know, we can have those disagreements. They can be open and above board. We can be honest and direct with each other, but we have to develop some form of working unity to develop some collective action to make sure that we defeat our enemies one at a time.
And you were involved in supporting your local, you were involved in supporting the UAW 4811, the encampment that they had, supporting Palestinian people against the genocide going on in Gaza. There was an incident there where Zionists and right-wingers, fascists, attacked that encampment. What was that all about? Because it seems that this is a very dangerous phenomena where these fascists and Zionists come together to physically assault people, and apparently only one person has been arrested in that physical assault.
And the police were on location and stood down, and the University of California administration was fully aware of it and stood down. The fascists were allowed to assemble. They were allowed to, with violent force, attack college students who were peacefully assembled, exercising their First Amendment rights. As you say, only one person has been arrested for it, where thousands of students across the country have been arrested for protesting to support the freedom of Palestine. You know, the movement, the fascist counter movement, I should say, at UCLA was funded and financed by Hollywood people like Jerry Seinfeld's wife. There will be at our conference some rank and file UAW 4811 members speaking on our panel. The universities are about to resume classes for their fall semester in a matter of weeks. So, you know, all of those conflicts are going to reemerge very, very soon at colleges across the country. The labor unions need to be ready to support the democratic rights of our students. And again, these particular grad students are labor union members.
And what has the Los Angeles Federation of Labor, the California AFL-CIO, done about it? Because this, the university went to a conservative judge in Orange County to get an injunction, even though California PERB said that they had the right to strike. It seems like there's a organized campaign by the university to crush any kind of opposition and to use the court system to prevent unions from democratically taking action. Do you see that as a threat to all workers, and how is it connected to the rest of the labor movement?
Well, right. So this statewide UAW local had twice won a challenge from the administration that its strike was invalid with the Public Employees Relations Board. And as you're saying, the administration then went judge shopping in Orange County to find a friendly judge to their cause that would give an injunction. So, in the labor process, that's still, to be fought out. But the labor movement at large, the County Labor Federation, the State Federation, needs to call this what it is. It's a threat to all workers, concerted actions everywhere in California. I will say that at the California Labor Federation's biennial convention, which was last month, they did pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire, an Israeli ceasefire in Palestine. The representatives of the United Auto Workers 4811 spoke and were well received. The resolution itself was very tepid and lukewarm, but the leaders of the UAW were warmly received by the rank and file delegates across the California Labor Federation. So it seems to me that the support of the rank and file of the membership of working people is with the UAW and the other student protesters, and we need to continue to push through our leaderships, through the head of the AFL-CIO, to get on the right side of history and get on the right side of their own future and existence.
And the growth in labor of a movement for Palestine against the genocide in Gaza seems historic. It's very big in many unions, UAW, SEIU even passed a resolution, the NEA. You think that the tide is changing in labor, and workers are beginning to wake up politically, that they have to get involved in this. It's not just an issue for Palestine, but the kind of attacks on the Palestinians could be attacks on people in this country.
And they will be. And, it's coming from the bottom. The rank and file is pushing their leaderships in unions across the country. I would say that social media probably plays a large role in this at being able to expose visually exactly what's happening in real time. It makes it a lot more difficult for, the narrative to be shrouded in, the fog of war, so to speak. When you could see the misery and the destruction that's being brought to these innocent and working class people, it's impossible as any type of human to not be impacted by that, unless you have some agenda or interest in promoting Zionism and imperialism. And then among conscious workers, the understanding is coming across that the forces of power that are behind this are interested in expanding capital. They're interested in trying to grab hold of resources. They're interested in trying to grab strategic positions. And so, economically, politically, we have to be in solidarity with the Palestinian people. They have the right to self-determination. They have the right to national status. They have the right to their own liberation, to determine their own futures. And what's being done to them is being done with our public monies in our name, and we must stand up against it.
And it seems that there's unlimited funding for wars abroad, Ukraine, Israel, encirclement of China, trillions of dollars. Yet, I mean, for working people in Los Angeles and California in this country, they're desperate situations. The homeless now are being attacked by Governor Newsom, and in San Francisco, Mayor London Breed, they're blamed for the crisis. Also, gentrification, the situation of working people in Los Angeles, housing, healthcare. They're cutting back on these social benefits, but it seems like there's an unlimited budget, and this is the bipartisan policy. I don't think that's not a debate right now among the Democrats and Republicans about the trillions that are going for war. Is that part of the political crisis we're in?
Well, and again, these are the capitalist and imperialist political organizations, the Democratic and the Republican Party. And this brings us back to the crisis of capitalism, when all of these resources are being put into destruction, into oppression, into violence, to killing poor and working class people. And then meanwhile, we could see in our own communities that the problems that we face in our own neighborhoods are not being solved, that those very same resources are needed for. And as you started before the segment, telling me what's happening with the train derailment in East Palestine and the impact on there. When we pay taxes, ostensibly that's in good faith to provide for the public, the public well-being, and those resources are supposed to go toward education and schools and housing and healthcare and solving our problems. But instead, it's being used to further create problems. And this creates anger, it creates resentment, and then that's where the fascist type of tricks and the fascist type of excitement is put forward to direct the anger of ordinary people against each other.
And as you mentioned, East Palestine is a prime example. Norfolk Southern, the railroad, caused a derailment because of the lack of safety and health for that railroad and for the workers. And the workers were contaminated with vinyl chloride. The company ignited the vinyl chloride that was in those cars without letting people know. The EPA told them, don't worry, it's safe. Now people were sickened. Workers were not able to work because of their illnesses and now have lost their health care. The government is covering it up. The EPA is covering it up. The government didn't even provide water, and people are angry. Where is the government? And there's a thing called the Stafford Act, which the president can institute, Biden, which would provide for health care for these people and money to move out of the communities. You literally have families who've been contaminated, stuck in that community without money to move in East Palestine. Yet we don't have any money for that, and they won't institute the Stafford Act. I think that, as you say, is an example.
And absolutely, and it's grim, and it's easy to see that those people have nowhere to go. There's nowhere for these people to go, and certainly they can't sell their properties, because who is going to buy it and walk into that? And so they're stuck there, and they're at the absolute mercy. And if not for the labor movement, who is going to concern themselves with the problems of these working class people?
And what can people do who want to support your conference or go to it? Where is it going to be held, and the arrangements?
It's going to be all day on Saturday, September 7th, at the Union Hall of, it's an SEIU affiliate called Workers United Western States Regional Joint Board at 920 South Alvarado, which is near MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. There's plenty of parking. We'll be providing lunch for everybody. Everybody that can make it is welcome. But I would encourage anybody in your own localities to organize your own discussions, in a formal way or in an informal way. We need to sort out what's going on and what we're about to find ourselves faced with very quickly. This is not an abstract discussion. It's going to be a working conference where we're going to do our best to develop a plan and then follow it through in the next weeks and months, because in our view, number one, we need to defeat fascism and make sure that Trump and his MAGA criminal associations do not take state power. Then we need to secure that victory and make sure that they don't somehow undermine and sabotage it with another insurrection attempt. And then number three, the Democratic Party cannot solve our problems, and we're not looking to them as a solution to our problems. It's a defensive maneuver to choose the lesser evil, but we need to quickly organize ourselves into coalitions, into united fronts, and ultimately toward a political party that represents working class and oppressed people on the basis of people's democracy, more democracy and not less.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us. We've been talking with Cliff Smith. He's the business manager of Roofers Local 36 in Los Angeles, and his local has initiated a conference on the rise of fascism, the working class, the elections, and building a workers' party. So thanks for joining us on Work
Take
Week.
care, Steve. All the best.